Happy Pride Month everyone, and to celebrate this amazing month I wanted to do something special, and that was explore some of the LGBTQ characters in MLP, from the well-known and even the more obscure ones. But also because, you know, hi. But first, some honorable mentions, beginning with King Sombra. I put King Sombra in honorable mentions because while he is an LGBTQ character, I really don't have a lot to say about him. King Sombra was confirmed to be a bi character, but because of Hasbro he needed to be toned down for the show. Which is a shame because it could have been cool to see how Sombra would have been if they kept his original version in the show. And the other one being Ocelis, and I know that everyone might think that I'm crazy, but this comes from the MLP comics, specifically Feats of Friendship. And the single panel where Twilight asks the student 6 to add Sweetfoot to the group, where Sandbar and Ocelis say that they would love to. This scene has always stood out to me because it makes me think that Ocelis was originally meant to be either a gay or bi character, but either the writers couldn't explore this aspect or maybe it was Hasbro who was against the idea of a love triangle between these characters. And again, it might be just me, but that's how I always interpret this small moment in the comic, but do let me know in the comments what do you think of this panel. But now, let's begin with the first LGBTQ couple in the show, which were Blue Moon and North Star. Blue Moon and North Star are two blue ponies, one being a unicorn and the other one a Pegasus. And these two were the first LGBTQ couple in the show, but I know what you're probably saying, how do we know that these two are actually a couple? Well, this came from the most unexpected of places, this one being Blue Moon's TCG card, where it reads that Blue Moon and North Star have been dating for months, and that Blue Moon was quoted saying that she makes me feel young. But hey, wait a minute. But wasn't North Star a male? Well, yes. So yeah, while you might think that this was a mistake made by Interplay, it wasn't, because this little change was made to quote not have problems with Hasbro, which was a smart move by Interplay, and while you might think that Blue Moon and North Star's story ended here, it didn't, as we would get to learn more about them in the future, but not in the show or in the comics, but rather in the MLP books, where we learn that the two of them at some point moved to Ponyville, that they have two daughters, Lily Moon and Amber Moon, and the fact that North Star is a criminal. So yeah, North Star is a criminal, as in the book Daring Do and the Forbidden City of Clouds. We see that he's a part of the Wild Bunch gang, a gang who steals artifacts and precious treasures from temples. And in the book he tried to steal the doomed diadem of Silatli from Daring Do, which was a shock at the time because it made us wonder what happened to North Star in the time we didn't see him. I mean, how do you go from working in Canterlot to stealing treasures from temples? But in the other hand, it was a cool detail that made North Star a little bit more interesting. But while these two are the first LGBTQ couple in MLP, they weren't the first characters, because that was Trixie, and I think we all know who Trixie is. She originally was a boastful unicorn that got exposed as a liar, and later she would come back to the show to be reformed. Oh, and she also was Starlight's friend. Trixie is a very popular character for a lot of reasons actually. Some people like her powerful personality, others her comedic moments, or others just the funny and amazing things that the fandom has done with her. But one aspect that made Trixie a little bit more interesting, especially at the time, was that she was a trans character. And while at the time there was a lot of skepticism from fans, this is something that is actually true. And this is because Trixie has one reflection in her eye, which I know it sounds weird at first, but Trixie is one of the few characters that has this little detail, with the other ones being male characters like Big Mac, King Sombra, Snips and Snails, and others. But believe it or not, Trixie is not the only male character with this detail, because we also have the Maniac, Granny Smith, and Nightmare Moon. So maybe Trixie is not the only trans pony in MLP, but the question is, how did Trixie end up with this detail? Well, Lauren Foss stated that the original premise for Bustbusters called for a boastful unicorn who originally was envisioned as a male. But the writer Chris Savino changed its mind and made the unicorn a female, and with this, the third person talking mare we have today was born. And while we exactly don't know why Chris Savino changed Trixie to a female, it could have been because Trixie worked better as a female character. But whatever the case might be, it's nice to see that Trixie was always meant to be a female character, and even if the single reflection in her eye was initially a mistake, Lauren Fuss solved that with this tweet, giving the community not only an iconic pony, but also a great and powerful trans icon. But while Trixie is a very beloved character, the next one isn't, but despite that they hold a special place in my heart, this one being Top Marks. Now, yes, I know what everyone is probably saying.
Who?
Well, Top Marks was a male unicorn lecturer with a blue coat, yellowish grey mane and golden eyes, and a cure mark which represents a golden laurel. And I think we all remember him as one of the examiners for Twilight's test. Top Marks is a really obscure character and he isn't a fan favorite, and even I don't like him that much to consider him to be my favorite. So why did I say that he holds a special place in my heart? Well, because Top Marks is one of the first LGBTQ characters I remembering figuring out. Top Marks originally was seen in the show as a male character, but in the comics, specifically issue 8 of the MOP microseries, we see that she transitioned into a mare, and what made this moment even more cute and heartwarming was that she was smiling, laughing and overall having a great time with her friends. And this was a big deal because in the show we never saw her smile or laugh, so in my own head I thought that the reason why was because she never felt comfortable with who she was, and when she finally transitioned she finally realized who she was meant to be. But again, this is how I saw this small panel, but in a way it gave this obscure character a small but important story. But Top Marks is not the only other background pony that had a queer-coded backstory, because we also have Starbright. Starbright was a male unicorn with a great coat, two-tone pale blue mane and a cure mark which represents a telescope. He first appeared in season 2 as a background pony and he would continue appearing in the show until season 9. Starbright might seem like another random background pony, but he not only has a story, but also he's a gay character. As throughout the show we saw his ups and downs and how he met his boyfriend Silverscript. Starbright is a Ponyville resident that is a big fan of the Wonderbolts, theater, buckball and loves going to important events in Canterlot. And is in here where he met Silverscript. While in the beginning they were only friends, we see that with time their relationship evolved into love, and by season 7 they were officially dating, and by season 9 they were officially a couple. Starbright and Silverscript weren't that important of characters, but surprisingly they were fan favorites for the few fans they noticed their relationship in season 9. With the two things that fans did the most was creating fan art and fanfics around their relationship. But hey, wait a minute, these two sound very familiar, almost like Curlywinks and Wizkid. Curlywinks and Wizkid are two background characters from Equestria Girls, one being an athlete from Canterlot High and the other one being an artist from the same school. And in Equestria Girls, these two were seen together a lot, to the point that some fans speculated that these two were a couple, and with good reasons. As we not only saw them hanging out, but also hugging with them blushing, them holding hands in public, and even a heroic moment from Curlywinks as he saved Wizkid from drowning when they were at the Deluxe. And while the show never confirmed that these two were actually a couple, a lot of fans considered them to be one, and with this fans created fan art, pride art, fanfics and even more stuff. And with this establishing them as one of the most popular background couples in Equestria Girls. But while Curlywinks and Wizkid were received well, our next character wasn't, but for the strangest of reasons, this one being Rolling Thunder. Rolling Thunder is a purple-coated mare with white fluffy hair and blue eyes, and we sadly don't know what her cure mark is, but we can assume that her cure mark is related to weather. Rolling Thunder is a character that didn't have a lot of development, if any, in the show, and she only appeared in one episode, this one being the Washouts. And the things that we do know about her is that she used to be a weather control Pegasus, that she's a little bit of a daredevil, and that she's also gay. And we know this because in the episode she winks at another mare in the crowd, and while this little gesture might not seem like a big deal, other countries didn't think so, as Rolling Thunder is one of the few characters that were censored in some dubs of the show. But I'm not talking about a character redesign or removal, but rather a change in voice from female to male, which is honestly kind of weird. But what I find even more weird is the dubs where this change was made, because sure, we have the Russian dub, and honestly this one is not that weird or surprising.
Нет, серьезно? Вступай в клуб. Мы называемся изгнанники, потому что мы были чудо-молниями, как ты. Ха! Пока нас не изгнали.
But then you have dubs like the French and Spanish versions, where they gave her a male voice, and not only that, but a very manly one at that.
Et si... Je m'appelle Rolling Thunder. J'ai été renvoyé de l'Académie des Wonderbolts pour mépris manifeste de climat dangereux.
Si hacer barrenas a través de 900 voltios durante una tormenta eléctrica es ilegal, entonces no quiero ser legal.
And the reason why I find this odd is that they're dubs like the Chinese and Korean dubs, where they gave her a tough, tomboyish voice, but still keeping the fact that she's a girl.
진짜 내 이름은 롤링 썬더야. 난 예전에 대놓고 위험한 날씨를 무시했다는 이유로 원더볼트 학교에서 쫓겨났어. 아니 9억 볼트짜리 번개가 치는 폭풍우 속에서 연속 회전을 하는 게 잘못이라면 계속 잘못하면서 살 거야.
对，我叫做滚雷，我从闪电飞马队学院被撵走，是因为公然无视恶劣的天气。如果说以铜滚方式通过9亿伏电量的狂雷暴是错的，那我并不想改正。
So let me get this straight. So you guys are okay with Trixie, Lyra and Bonbon, and On Holiday and Lofty, but you aren't with a one-time character that winked at another character once. Really? But as a whole, Rolling Thunder was a pretty good character, and I do mean that literally. She was a really cool design. And even with the weird choice of changing her voice, she became a small fan favorite, with people making pretty cool art of her and some even representing her as an LGBTQ character, which honestly is so awesome to see. Also, she was voiced by the same actress who voiced Vapor Trail, so that's pretty cool. Also forgot to record this normally. Sorry for that. But now let's move on to two more well-known characters, one that their story didn't start in the show, but rather by fans. This one's being Lyra and Bonbon, and do I even need to describe who these two are? Well, maybe I do. Lyra is a human and bench-loving pony that has a ladder as a cutie mark, and she's the girlfriend of Bonbon, which is a special agent that works for a company called Smile. These two have been a couple since 2011, but what makes these two pretty unique is not their relationship, but rather how it started, as is one of the first ships that entirely was made by fans. As what began as a coincidental pairing set by one of the layout artists themselves, transformed into one of the most popular ships in the show, at least in 2011, only rivaled by another background pony ship, in Vinyl and Octavia. But the question is, when did these two actually start dating in the show? And while you might expect that they started dating since season 2, as that was when fans began shipping them, their love story actually started in a very similar way to Starbright's and Zero's-Script, as they originally began as friends and their first major interaction was in the episode Secret of My Excess. But from there, their relationship continued to grow, but probably the first time that Lyra fell in love with Bonbon was in season 5, more specifically in the episode Party Popped. But they didn't really become an official couple until season 9, when the both of them proposed to each other and even getting married at the end of the show. There's no denying that these two are one of the prime examples of what fans can do, as what originally began as two random ponies that didn't even interact became a couple that inspired a lot, and I do mean a lot, of fan arts, comics, and fanfics. And of course a very passionate and loyal fanbase, but while these two originally weren't meant to be a couple, our next characters did. These ones being On Holiday and Auntie Lofty. These two are an Earth Pony and Pegasus couple, and in the show they were Squirrel's aunts. And while a lot of people know them in the show, they actually originated in the MLP books. On Holiday and Auntie Lofty originally didn't begin as characters, but rather as a collaboration between writers Michael Vogel and Nicole DeBuck. And their role in the book wasn't that big, but it's in this book where we first learn who On Holiday and Auntie Lofty were. As in the book we learn that On Holiday is the older sister of Squirrel's dad, as well as confirming that the both of them look over Squirrel while their parents are away. And we would see them again 1 year later in the MLP Ponyville Mysteries issue 3, where they looked pretty different, with On Holiday having a green coat and blonde hair, and Auntie Lofty having a cream coat and pink hair. And honestly, I'm not that big of a fan of these designs. Is it just me, or does the colors not fit at all? But aside of the weird color scheme, they actually served a little role in the comic, as they chaperone the Cutie Crusaders Philly Guides camping trip. And they also teach them how to make Sam Yum, which, fun enough, is an actual real life dish, which is pretty cool. And a year later, On Holiday and Auntie Lofty would finally appear in season 9, and with this making a historic moment in the franchise. as they were the first LGBTQ couple that was approved by Hasbro, and more surprisingly is that they would appear in 2 other stories after their initial appearance. This one's being in issue 93 now with their show designs, where they encourage Squirrelu's efforts to connect with her parents, and in the MLP X Transformers series of comics, where they go to Cybertron to look for Squirrelu and even teaming up with RC and Green Light. But the LGBTQ representation didn't stay only in G4, because it also carried over to G5 with 2 characters, these ones being Cherry and Diggy and Sander. Let's begin with Cherry. Cherry is an orange coat and red hair pony, and they have a cutie mark which represents, well, cherries. What makes Cherry pretty special is that they are maybe the only non-binary character in MLP, or at least the only one which has been confirmed as non-binary. Cherry only appeared in 1 comic, this one being in Brian Woodstock as the leader of the band The Hoofpicks, and in the comic their voice got stolen by a troll, with Zip beginning to investigate and asking questions to Cherry's bandmates. But because Cherry is so awesome, takes matters into their own hands, with them noticing the troll that stored their voice and following it outside, where they use one of their bandmates' ruby necklace and fits it to the Truggle, with them finally getting their voice back and even telling Zip that the Truggles are not that threat and that they're just hungry, despite the fact that they stole Cherry's voice. And that's it. We sadly never saw Cherry again in G5, but despite that I can say that Cherry was a pretty good character that deserved a little bit more fanfare, which is something that I could say for our final G5 characters, which are Diggy and Sander. Diggy and Sander are 2 background ponies that appear ever since the movie, and what makes these 2 not only unique but important is that they are the first openly gay characters in MLP. And while it's up to speculation when exactly these 2 met, a lot of fans had agreed that they began dating after the movie, as in the movie we saw Diggy with a family. And while at the time maybe Diggy wasn't intended to be gay, a lot of fans think that originally Diggy had a family before meeting Sander and separated when he fell in love with him. But whatever the case might be, it made your mark when we finally saw more about their relationship, like them going to Ruby Jubilee's concert, them cheering for their son Ferris in his cutie mark Blossom Bash, and even packing up when Opaline attacks Maritime Bay. But that's it. Again, Diggy and Sander weren't that prominent of characters, but despite this, they are fan favorites among the G5 fans, although in my opinion they deserve a little bit more of love by fans. Which is something that I could say for all the characters in this video. Despite some being more popular than others, it's incredibly interesting how far we've come in LGBTQ representation in MLP. From hints in the TCG cards to full-on couples and characters, and hopefully we could see more in the future. But what do you guys think? What other MLP characters do you consider have LGBTQ representation, and which one is your favorite? Leave it down in the comments. And as always, remember to like the video if you enjoyed it and consider subscribing for more MLP videos like this one, and remember to take care guys, be safe, and remember to be always yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone.